And funny story there, when you're a kid collecting baseball cards, back when my brother did play with me and we did do stuff together, I'm kidding, but we got, our Topps baseball cards, and you always have that guy in your package of cards that you get every single time, or you get 3 of them. And back then, it was this long-haired beard. Of course, everybody has beards now, but it was Larry Parrish with a big beard, and we always made fun of Larry Parrish. We just thought that was a crazy name. Not the best-looking dude at the time. Third base for the Expos, I guess. And before you know it, he's the manager of the 1996 Jacksonville Suns, and I have a championship ring because of Larry Parrish today. So it's funny, but learned a lot there.
We often remember, these times fondly when it was pretty hard stuff at the time. You mentioned the long hours and things like that. You mentioned before that your extended family is doctors and businessmen and people in the construction world and successful people. Was there ever a point in time where you maybe weren't feeling the dream as much as you had originally? Were there times when you thought that maybe you decided to take the wrong path?
I don't know about the wrong path, but yeah, there were definitely some times you're 3 or 4 or 5 years out of college maybe, and you're not where some of your friends are. Not that I was ever into keeping up with the Joneses, but if that makes sense. But there were probably some times you're questioning, but then you realize, I think I had a discussion, I sat down with my brother, what have you been doing all your life? You don't just give up now. I mean, but those were short thoughts. But yeah, we all have bad days or difficult times, but wouldn't trade anything.
So, spent about a half a decade there. Then you spent some time working as assistant general manager for the Kansas City Comets in soccer. That's a bit of a different change, but it's still sports management. So what led you in that direction?
Yeah, well, as you know, Danny, in the early 80s, growing up, the Kansas City Comets were huge. I mean, it was huge. Other than the Royals, it was a big name in town. And I was a big fan of the Comets indoor soccer team and the winter, because the Royals weren't playing the summer. I had to listen to something on the radio. I didn't really play soccer much, but I became a fan. Those guys were big around town. Kim Bruntved, Zoran Savic, Yilmaz Orhan, Gordon Hill, Enzo DePede. So I had an opportunity. George Brett's neighbor at the time had just bought the Kansas City Attack, Kansas City Comets, Don Kincaid, and I had always wanted to come back to Kansas City in the sports world, and probably would eventually at some spot. Just was waiting for the right time, and I will say that I would like to say, not in an arrogant way, my 5 or so years in Jacksonville, I mean, I earned the opportunity to get the job with the Comets and come back home, but it probably didn't hurt that George Brett hand-delivered my resume to Don Kincaid. But you're exactly right. The business is the same. It's a different ball on the field, but it's still operations, marketing, sales, ticket sales, administration. So it was nice to actually come back, work in soccer, worked with Zoran Savic. He was the vice president, general manager, and the head coach. So I was assistant GM. I was basically the GM some years. It was nice. We had a small staff, but again, I was able to learn to do a lot, and I won't trade that for anything. It's great experience, but also it was nice because I worked in soccer. I could be a baseball fan in the summer, so I had my summers off. So yeah, it was fun times.
Then now do you make the adjustment several years later to going back to baseball, and it comes in independent baseball, and it comes maybe in a situation that might have seemed challenging, although brand new ballpark situation like that. Talk about the transition back into the world of baseball.
Well, the new ballpark was exciting. Of course, you were part of the 03 team, the founding of the T-Bones. Danny is broadcaster for the T-Bones. I remember that that summer that the consultant that was putting the deal together, Mike Thiessen, along with John Ellert, Adam Ellert, our T-Bones owners, I remember that Jeff Montgomery actually gave my name to the consultant that, hey, you should look at this guy. They were looking for a top sales guy and a top administrative AGM operations type guy. And I thank Jeff Montgomery today because he gave them my name, and I got a call from them. And let's see, I think I was hired in August, and we broke ground in September 4th of 2002 on that stadium. And here it is, 2018, almost 19, and still here. So, it was great to get back into baseball.
Assistant general manager, and how long did that last before you became the man?
Well, I was assistant GM through, I think, about 2008, and I was named vice president general manager in 2008. So I had a great time under Rick Montine, who was our GM in the early years, and of course we've had some great owners, John Ellert, Adam Ellert. But yeah, took over the big chair in 2008, and it's been a fun time and labor of love. Every day, you and I, we have good days, bad days, but at the end of the day, I'm driving to the ballpark every day, so that's not a bad day. And the worst day, at least you're at the ballpark.
When you're in a situation where you have very challenging jobs, and that you have jobs that have extremely long hours. What was it? At what point in time were you able to carve out the opportunity to get married and have a family? How did that work?
Well, I guess I have a very understanding and loving wife, Becky, and now our 2 children. But yeah, we got married in 2004. I'm going to get in trouble here.
How'd you meet?
Well, I was going to say that's what I got sidetracked. I met post game. I live downtown in downtown Kansas City, Missouri, which is booming right now. In 2001, 2, and 3, people used to say there's not much going on down there. I always said there is, so you just stay away because I'm having fun down here. Of course, now there's all sorts of places downtown. But so I met my future bride at the Quaff post game after a T-Bones game, I think, or after a Comets game maybe. And my wife Becky, she lived in a brownstone condo right across from the church there on 12th Street. I lived in a flat on 9th Street, and we met at the Quaff. And she's from Detroit, not from here. She just moved to town, and we hit it off. Her cousin will say that she was actually stalking me, but for a couple days or months. But yeah, we met at the Quaff, and longtime partners of the T-Bones and friends down there. But yeah, so and here we are, 2018, and 2 kids and a dog later.
Did some of the hours and the structure of the way that your life would work, was that a challenge to a relationship early on?
I think so, maybe in the beginning, and my wife is probably listening to this right now, and she won't like that comment, but my wife's a little younger, but she also knew what I did for a living. It's different. It's not 9 to 5. But I do remember a few times in the early days where I might get called, and I got to make sure my groundskeeper put the tarp on the field. I got to go, we got a game tomorrow. I think in the early days, maybe she didn't understand that. That's a part of the GM's job to make sure it gets done. I'm not necessarily out there pulling the tarp all the time, but we can't not have a game tomorrow. So those were some challenges. But you know what? Long hours, crazy hours, some stresses. The phone's attached to me when the team's on the road, talking to our manager back and forth. But what I'm saying is, we've been lucky enough to enjoy a lot of good times together because of what I do and some of the people I've met and the opportunities that we get from that. So I think it works hand in hand.
Have you seen the T-Bones and the league they play in and the world of independent baseball evolve over the 15 years or so that you've been at it?
Well, I really like where our league is now. I think, minor league baseball and even independent baseball is really going through a booming growth period. We've got a new team in Chicago that started last year, the Chicago Hot Dogs. They play in a $72 million stadium near Rosemont. Their manager is Butch Hobson, guy from the 80s. There's a new team coming in the suburb of Milwaukee, brand new. There's a new team that started 2 years ago in a suburb of Dallas and Cleburne, again, brand new stadium. So we're in some good markets. There's 12 teams in the league. For those that follow the T-Bones, we saw 14 players off our roster get promoted to the next level this year. That's unheard of. A lot of that credit goes to our manager, Joe Cafapietra. But overall, minor league baseball, you've probably seen, Danny, you're a fan. The ballparks are quirky and fun, new, built to look old. And then, of course, now you got the crazy, crazy, crazy names. You thought T-Bones was a crazy name. Now you got the Amarillo Sod Poodles. You got the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp. So I don't know if I'm a Suns alumni or if I'm a Jumbo Shrimp alumni. Just some crazy names that, Rocket City Trash Pandas. I mean, my daughter, Pee Wee Reese, loves the Trash Pandas. But I think it's neat. It's booming. Who would have thunk, right?
You got to tell me about naming your children. Your son is named Brett. That's obvious. Your daughter is named Reese after Pee Wee Reese. Okay, the Brett one, probably not a hard sell, but Reese and the derivation thereof. How'd that go with Becky?
Well, that was maybe a little more challenging to get that one done, Danny. But, yeah, the funny story about Brett is most likely his name was going to be Brett. We consider some other names. I guess I won't say what they are, but we actually thought about Will and Wilson. But anyway, back to Brett. I remember we had a game. It was June 5th, 2007. I get a call about 7:05 when the anthem starts that, hey, Becky's going into labor. And I said, okay, great, I'll meet you there. Of course, that was the wrong answer. I didn't know that I had to go home and pick her up and take her there, not knowing that's the new father. He doesn't know what he's doing. So, but anyway, 7:05, and we go to the hospital. And that night, of course, Brett is born at 11:25. So a lot of fives there on June 5th. So he had no chance. He was going to be Brett Christopher all the way. But, yeah, Reese was so Becky had some input on Reese, and Catherine, of course, is a middle name, and there's many members of my family that have that name. But so we kind of settled on Pee Wee Reese, so, and she was born on August 11th. He was, number 11, number 1. So, but, yeah, that's my daughter, Pee Wee Reese.
And do you actually call her Pee Wee?
We do. I do, yeah. I do.
How old is she now?
She is 9. Of course, in school, she goes by Reese. But I'll never forget one of my good mentors and friends, Kevin Gray. Kevin Gray, and unfortunately that is no longer with us, but I encountered him when he was with the Royals in the front office when I was a little bat boy. Heck, he was probably 27, 28, 29. And then he kind of became a friend and mentor years later with the Sports Commission. But, his daughters, Peepers and Gigi, the nicknames. And I grew up in the clubhouse, so everybody had a nickname. So, yeah, it's Pee Wee Reese, Danny. Let's go.
And what's your connection with Pee Wee Reese? That's obviously you're younger than me. I mean, anybody who really is a baseball historian would know Pee Wee Reese. But what was the connection with Pee Wee Reese?
There's no real connection. I think it's the only thing that goes with Reese that's baseball related. But I think that my grandparents were Brooklyn Dodgers fans and some old school baseball. But it's just fun. It's just fun.
What's in store, do you think, for the T-Bones? And you said you're really happy with where the league is at. And is it difficult maybe to come up with new and fresh ideas? Is it still refreshing to see the sort of family atmosphere of minor league baseball? Just tell me where you're at with the T-Bones and just baseball life in general.
Sure. Well, this May it'll be our 17th season here in Kansas City. With the T-Bones, affordable family fun, well done, we like to say, and yeah, 17 years. Our city has changed a lot. There's a lot of things to do out there, a lot of competition, but I think we got a great niche, we got a great product, and of course, what we have this year is we won the championship, and it was a hard-fought battle, and we're out there promoting a champion right now. We're going to celebrate a championship all summer long, so everybody loves a winner, and we're very proud of that, and our owners and staff and players and managers. So that's fun to sell. But, yeah, you can't take anything for granted, and you always got to be looking at new things, new ideas. Of course, it helps when Pat Mahomes wants to come out to your game and have a hot dog. And, of course, his dad pitched in our league. But, yeah, you're always looking for new things, new ideas, new twists, and that's what we do in the winter, playing for next summer. So it'll be here before you know it.
And some people might be curious, across the way, you have another very successful franchise there in the obviously Sporting Kansas City. And when that whole operation was about to unfold, and they used your ballpark for what, 1 year? 3 years? 3 years, okay. I went to. It wasn't an ideal venue for soccer, to say the least, but you guys were an important conduit from between the two things. How did that all evolve? What was the relationship like, and maybe what was the maybe some trepidation at the fact that they are competitors in a way?
Well, I think it's great to have the three stadiums out there in Village West, the Legends right now, and the Kansas Speedway, Sporting KC, and then our park. I think it's a great for that area to have professional sports out there. They played at our park for 3 years, and Kevin Gray was a big part of that with Sports Commission. I remember him calling me all the time. Of course, the Wizards, Sporting KC owner, and our owner have to make the deal, but Kevin's calling me every day in my ear. You got to get this done. We got to save this team. They can't move. You got to find a way. Help me out. We got to keep this team here. And it was a challenge, but it worked out fine. Sporting KC, the then Wizards, called us, and and we were able to come to agreement. And they played there for 3 years when they had no home. So it was